with the meditation. Take your attention down below your belly button, and your attention follows your intention. Use your breath to guide your attention down below your belly button. So that all your thoughts are coming from below your belly button. You can use the space between the breaths to intensify your feeling in that location. And when you're ready, drop your attention to the earth, into the earth herself. We are made of the earth. Everything of a body comes from and returns to the earth. In our wholeness, we can recognize that. Accept it, and then not be bound by it. Gently allow your attention to come up to your diaphragm, between the center below your belly button and your heart. Feel into that space. Let your mind sink into that space. Allow your breath to expand in that space. As you feel for the place between the breaths located there. Right at the base of the rib cage. And make sure you feel all the way into your back, not just the front. When you're ready, gently allow your attention to go to your heart center. When you're ready, bring your attention to your throat center. Gently move to the center of your head, behind and between your eyebrows. Allow yourself to tune into the rising energy as it goes out the top of your head like a fountain and pours over the sides of your body in 360 degrees. Gathers at the bottom of your spine and flows upward. Holding your attention in that awareness. Allow your eyes to open as you hold your attention. Feel what it feels like to be in that state with your eyes open. We welcome your questions. feel free to unmute yourself and ask or write a question into the chat. Yes.
Yeah, good morning. I
Good
guess
morning.
nice to see you. Night, so a little more clarity on allowing your thoughts to come from below the belly button.
Well, the reason we're talking that way is because we've been taught, or at least Rebecca was taught, to always center the thoughts behind the eyes, basically, or in the head. And if you notice in science recently, really for probably the last 2 decades, was when they first started talking about the enteric brain, the brain that's actually in the gut. And so just because we're taught that all the information is between our ears doesn't mean it's the truth. And the realization that we are much bigger than that our access to information is not limited to that, and that our ability to connect to different parts of ourselves and different information systems is not limited to that, is really a huge revelation. Has been a huge revelation. And so we're trying to share that with you. So that's the reason for that addition to meditation, because it is in truly moving our attention out of that space that we habitually occupy, that allows us to have a different experience. And so there's a true allowing of your attention to sink deeper into your beingness, which is the rest of our body, but not really our body, but not disconnected from our body. And this is why we talked about the body being made of the earth.
Yeah.
That's a reality. And that takes our attention. That takes a lot of our attention, just being here on the earth and managing that situation. That takes a lot of attention. But when we realize that we're not just that, and part of realizing that, interestingly, is completely accepting it, connecting ourselves to the earth so we understand how much of us is connected to the earth and how much of it isn't. But if we deny that connection, then we don't know where we are, what we are, or really what we're made of. So it's in the acceptance of everything that we run into, the real acceptance, that we begin to expand our awareness and our sources of information. And we also get an expanded capacity for experience. We're not limited by the body, but holding our attention fixed between our ears sort of guarantees that we don't experience anything beyond that.
Yeah.
And there's a kind of mental empathy that comes from that. But true empathy comes from actually feeling what another person feels. And that doesn't happen between our ears. And action in the world also is very limited if it comes from between our ears. Every warrior knows that grounded place. Every athlete knows that place, whether they think about it or not. Their attention is in the balance point of the body below the belly button.
Well, I love when you remind us that the earth is our mother, and I connect with that. It just feels lovely. So to remind myself and to allow myself to sink into that place.
Yes, the earth nurtures us. The earth comforts us. The earth holds us. The earth feeds us. The earth produces everything we need
Mm,
to be happy and content in this place. It all
mm,
comes from the earth. And of
mm,
course, it's reflected to us by the moon
mm, mm.
and the sun. So there's that trinity.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
Okay.
So welcome.
Thank you.
So, between the years, excuse me, um, you kind of mean all of our learning, like our school learning, and I don't know, mental information.
All of our thought, all of our what we call thoughts. Everything in English.
How about this stuff in French? No, kidding. Uh,
Yes,
I
that
have,
was a big limitation.
I am a dancer as well, and or I have been, and yeah, there's an intelligence there that you really have to let go of your mental i- stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, anything that you do with the body that really causes you to have to embody as you do it comes from that center below your belly button.
Thank you. Yeah.
You know, the experience when you were a child, I don't know if you had this, but when you start running and you go so fast that your legs sort of, you lose contact with your legs and you fall down. That's when you're disconnected from that center. I don't know if you had that experience as a child, but Rebecca certainly did. And of course, each energy center gives us different information, as do the channels, the acupuncture channels. They're a whole different level of information. And there are, every pore of our body is an energy center. And so these things that we call chakras are junction points where there's a confluence of many, we'll call them lines, meridians of influence. And there are many spiritual traditions that pay no attention to these energy centers, that focus on a beingness that brings us to a sense of peace. And the understanding that joy and sorrow are the same. Another word for that is equanimity. Could say another way that the joy of being alive and the knowledge that every moment brings us closer to our death. And being able to occupy that space in between with ease. We didn't mean to stop the conversation.
I was
Yes.
just feeling the sweetness of what you shared with us. Um, so just feeling the mother and feeling into that space is a very nice relief.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny, we're getting a lot of Christian imagery today. The 23rd Psalm is all about that,
Oh.
that we've been given everything we need.
Mm.
That is the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie in green pastures. He restoreth my soul.
Yeah.
Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Thy rod, that's the central channel, and thy staff, that's the Ida and the Pingala,
Mm.
they comfort me.
Mm.
What happens next?
For thou art.
For thou art with me? Is that
Yeah, I think so.
for thou art with me? Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before mine enemies. Thou anointest me with oil. My cup runneth
Move
over.
over.
Is that the end?
Of righteousness. He restoreth my soul, he leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake.
Anyway, that,
Yeah.
understood is that's all of it. It's there too.
Mm.
And
Thank-
every religion that has ever happened has come through with the truth. And then it gradually gets distorted by power seekers who want to use power to control others. Simple way of saying it. And so it ends up imprisoning most people and becomes something totally distorted, which is why a new one appears. And they all start out with the best of intentions. The highest best for everyone. Yes.
Read what's in the chat. Would you speak a little bit to the notion of, quote, just as we are happily past the time, just as we are happily past the time, end quote, question mark.
Just as we are happily passing the time, is that what's meant?
Hi, Becky. It's Pat. So I'm speaking to the Abhinavagupta quote of just as you are, happily pass the time. So I would love to hear from Manasa on that.
So we'll use the most challenging experience that any of us will ever have, which is death. So the happiest way to die is to just go to sleep. Just pass the time in contentment, in happiness. Trust that that divinity which has given us life will not abandon us in death. Because everything is that divinity. Everything. So the understanding that Mother Earth is doing her best in every moment to provide for us. That the twists and turns that we all go through as we experience that which is drawn to us for whatever reason, which we are drawn toward or we draw toward us, they're the same. The concept of drawing to and moving toward, that all of us, all of that is best experienced from the place of contentment. Impossible. And yet true. And in acknowledging that truth, it gives us the awareness that there is a balance point. That balance point is equanimity. And you know yourself from the study of astrology that, you know, certain things happen at certain times to people that are predictable. At least the wave of the restrictive or expansive energy can be seen in the chart. And so from that perspective, the idea of karma can give us an intellectual way to greet the difficulties that happen in our lives that we seem not to deserve. That we would resist. We all resist. So with that understanding, then we can at least have the idea, first of all, that everything is temporary when we run into difficulty. Because whatever we're experiencing in a given moment always feels like that's what we're going to experience for the rest of our lives. So if we're happy, that happiness extends forever in that moment. And if we're really melancholy, that sadness feels like that's our life. And yet, ironically, health is experiencing everything in real time and reacting to it in real time, not as though it's some repeat of something we experienced in the past. And most of us by this age, it takes some work to allow ourselves to experience things in real time, because we've been so conditioned by our matrix of belief and repeated experiences that seem similar. But everybody on this call is working very, very hard to experience everything in real time. And has been for a long time, or you wouldn't be here. This conversation would not be interesting to you. Not sure we answered the question.
You, you did. I was thinking more in terms of it seems to me that one of the wonderful luxuries of being older is that it's possible to stop striving in a ridiculous fashion, because all it's ever going to get you is the same place everybody else is going to go. Nobody gets out alive. And so I was thinking more in terms of sort of like a Byron Katie notion of loving things exactly as they are, accepting ourselves for who we are, still encouraging growth. I was thinking along those lines, but I thought maybe Anasa could take me deeper instead of just, okay, I accept myself exactly as I am. More like you accept and you keep growing. So there has to be change. So it's kind of it's just an interesting, it's not a contradiction. It's just an interesting process, I guess. And I thought Anasa might have interesting things to say about it, and they did. So,
Well, you've brought up another thing that we really want to address, and that is that the central issue, of course, is love. And acceptance and love are not exactly the same thing. Acceptance is acceptance. Love is beyond that. It's like embracing acceptance so deeply that no part is left out of it. And interestingly, we are much better at doing that with people outside of us than we are with ourselves. And this is not personal to you. This is true of every person that we have ever looked at. That the difficulty for human beings is self-love. We have the idea that if we truly abandon ourselves in self-love, that suddenly something terrible will happen. All our governors will disappear. Or some other reason that we feel inside ourselves that we can't have this radical love of self. Because of course, love of others can only happen from love of self, from that experience of abandoning ourselves in love, abandoning every idea of what we are, but pure love. And this is really what it means, the highest best for all, is to abandon ourselves to love, in love. And yes, any idea of becoming means that there is not true acceptance. And interestingly, that frees us, as you said so beautifully, that frees us to just experience what is.
it's interesting because for the first time, given what you're saying, I actually understand this quotation. So, just as we are happily past the time. So I used to look at that and think, oh, okay, I can just be me, warts and all. And I don't have to, I can just do that. I can just do that. But that never quite squared with the idea of growing, which is what I, was saying before. But what you just said makes me understand this for the first time. Just as we are, our true nature is God, is love.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So happily passing the time in that state is what he's talking about. And me, I was sitting there thinking, okay, I just get to be a pig in shit and I can happily pass the time. But no, it's being in God and then you happily pass the time. Okay, thank you, Anasa. That was cool.
So we'll say one more thing, and that is where the capital S self and the small s self become one.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, because you are always going to be a pig in shit to some extent, but at the same time, you are a godlike pig in shit. And all of that is as you are. Great. Thank you. Thank you.
And shit continues to happen.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Because we're human and there's, it's just the way it is.
And,
Hallelujah.
chop wood, carry water.
No, thank you. Awesome.
So
Thank-
grateful. So grateful. How may we serve further? Yes.
One of the goals in spiritual practice is to be in the here and now. And with that, there's some emotions, fear and anger, fear, which tends to be future oriented, and anger, which tends to be processing of the past. But even in the here and now, those emotions exist. And can you speak more about how to be with them?
So the question is, in the here and now, fear and anger exist, experiencing our moment-to-moment existence. Fear and anger arise. What do we do with that? How to be with it? Well, the first thing is you say, hello, fear. That's usually at the basis of the anger, or anger at the basis of fear. It goes both ways. But those are two of the main ones that actually they make us feel bad about ourselves. That's the problem with them. There's no other problem with them, is that we judge ourselves to have failed when we experience these emotions of fear and anger. So the first thing is to just stop that judgment of failure, because it's not true. Fear and anger are essential to being human. We are only responsible for our actions. So we've all learned by now that fear and anger, allowed to run rampant, cause us to either run towards certain experiences or run away from others. And so we've also learned that reaction, quick reaction, is only our friend when our life is threatened. But most of the time we feel like our life is threatened for reasons that aren't really threatening. So that's what we're talking about, what to do in that experience. And that is total acceptance. Hello, fear. Is my life in danger? And you look around carefully. Oh, not in this moment. Thank you, fear, for alerting me to look and see if my life is in danger. And suddenly the fear will disappear. Or Ho'oponopono will address an old fear that has come to be brought into harmony. An old experience, usually of drama and trauma, that was done to us either this life or another. It doesn't really matter. But when fear appears for no apparent reason, then it's drama and trauma from the past that can be completely addressed with that union with love itself, which can be gotten back to with Ho'oponopono. So having understood that love is who and what we are, when we allow everything else to dissolve, it is another pattern to be dissolved. Now, when fear and anger arise because of real-time situations, usually with people who have harmed us in some way, the best thing to do is to wish that person well. And here's why. When we hold fear and anger, who does that hurt? You think it reaches the other person? Well, in a certain way it does, because we are sending out fear and anger and thinking of that person. Does that help that person get over whatever it is that's causing them to behave in such a way? And more importantly, does that help us to live in equanimity? This is really what, it's all coming Christian this morning. This is really what turning the other cheek means. It means that you wish the other person well so that they can drop all this negativity that is causing you to feel harmed. That's the only benefit you can give to the situation. We all want to benefit every situation. That's really what we want our life to be, is to be a life that serves the whole. And so it seems stupid to wish a person well who's trying to harm us. But really, it's how we keep ourselves in balance. Because we understand that everything that we love is changed by that love. But that can only happen by changing ourselves into love first. It's all very counterintuitive. And we think intuition is very, very important. So our immediate reaction to harm from another is fear and anger. And so we recenter ourselves in love, which is really love of the capital S self, as we merge our small s self. A deep breath as we connect to that which is real. This is the reality. Are you connected or not? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think that there's a tendency. It's because not all fear is from the past, some fear is from present threat. But the idea, and I certainly believe in wishing well to whoever's trying to harm you. But on the other hand, there's a tendency to just want to make it go away. Or, sort of flood it with white light or something, which is all very beautiful. But I don't know. That sometimes it's sidestepping the issue, it seems to me.
Well, this brings us to what we were trying to say earlier about, it's sort of the bad things happen to good people conversation. And a simple way to short circuit all of that is the idea of karma. That we have attracted this for whatever reason. And it doesn't matter what the reason is, but every experience we can use as we're seeing a spoke on a wheel that brings us to the center of love. From whatever particular angle we're learning to get to that from in this experience. And, that sounds like a panacea, but it's a lived experience of being love. And it only makes sense from that perspective. From any other perspective, it's nonsense. Maybe we sidestep the question.
No.
Does that answer it? People do what they do for whatever reason, whatever they think they're going to get from it. And usually Usually when people are doing harm to others, there's are layers and layers of unconsciousness behind the actions and words and usually they're thoughtless. Or for whatever reason, unable to comprehend the magnitude of destruction that they are doing by seeking whatever it is they're seeking that they think is a good thing. However the person's wired who's doing something destructive, they're sadly, in the case that's coming to mind, a pawn of some other, and very deluded. And there's, it's all madness. There's no sanity in it. And so how do you respond to that? You don't, except with love. But you also do no harm to yourself. And the only way in that situation is to do no harm to yourself is to not poke the monster. Remove yourself as much as possible from the setting. Any poking the monster will bleed all over you. And we all have seen situations where maybe even loved ones have embraced delusion to the point that the situation becomes monstrous. And you just have to let go. And you wish the person well. And release your own hope for that person at the same time. Because that is a kind of entanglement because it's your idea of something for them. You release every thought construct surrounding that relationship. You just let go of it. And whenever your mind starts to go there, you just cut it off. Because your energy will always be used against you when a person is that horrific. It's not that the person is horrific, they're entangled in something horrific. So you just completely let go. And you never stop loving because you understand that love begins inside you. And whenever you give in to something that's not love inside you, you have become less love. It's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. So the task becomes just letting go, like this. Just let go, let go, let go, let go, let go. Send love. Let go. Any expectation, any hope, anything, just let go. You become love. And then naturally that goes to every connection. It waters every connection. You don't have to engage for that love. That love naturally engages. It's what it does. It doesn't need our attention to find its location. Does that make sense? So understand that by loving, we are curing ourselves. This is the true cure for everything. And if we practice going to sleep in love every night, we're practicing for our last breath. We go to sleep at the foot of the goddess. Completely connected to heaven and earth at the same time. Completely disconnected from heaven and earth at the same time. In love. This is the fullness of life. And we want you to understand that it is your quality that is bringing this information out of us. That is bringing us to you. It is your quality. We are not the wand from heaven anointing you. It is you anointing yourselves by engaging and becoming. Love itself. That love is not some other. Oh my, that went fast. Well, we might as well enjoy this space we've come to. So happy to be with you today. Let's meditate for a few minutes before we sign off. So delicious to be with you. If you don't mind, we're going to say a few mantras that we meant to say at the beginning, but forgot to turn on the microphone. So we'll say them now. Om Shrim Rim Klim Glom Gom Ganapatiye Varvarda Sarvyaname Vasamani Soha. Om Shrim Rim Klim Glom Gom Ganapatiye Varvarda Sarvyaname Vasamani Soha. Om Shrim Rim Klim Glom Gom Ganapatiye Varvarda Sarvyaname Vasamani Soha. Trayambukam yijamahe sugandim pushti vartanam urva rukamiva bandhana mrityur mukshi vamamrutata. Om Trayambukam yijamahe sugandim pushti vartanam urva rukamiva bandhana mrityur mukshi vamamrutata. Om Trayambukam yijamahe sugandim pushti vartanam urva rukamiva bandhana mrityur mukshi vamamrutata. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you so much. It's been so beautiful to be with you today. Till next week.